Spielberg called. Says he wants me to write a movie. Hi, this is Steven Spielberg? Thank you for clarifying. My caller ID just said God. Hi. How can I help you, Steven? Mr. Spielberg. Dang it! I should have asked him how he was doing first. Well, I have a movie, but I need a writer. Do you have time to talk? Heck yes, I do! What do you want? I'll do it. It doesn't matter what it is. Jurassic Park 2? Yeah, for sure. Whatever it is. Jaws 4? Sharks in Space? Okay. E.T. Strikes Back, Indiana Jones, and the Overcooked Breakfast. Whatever it is, I'm in. You don't say no to Spielberg. Yeah, Steven, I guess I can spare a few minutes. What's the movie about? Well, it's about the Holocaust. How can I write about the Holocaust? I wasn't there. I don't have the right, I'm not even Jewish. I'm a white European male. I mean, I'm the bad guy in that story. No matter what I do, I'm going to screw it up somehow. And it's only 1993. It hasn't even been 50 years since it happened. I mean, let it heal. No matter what I do or how I write this, someone's going to be offended. It's going to be insensitive to someone. This could be the end of my career. But you don't say no to Spielberg. He's one of the greatest directors of all time. I mean, if you ask anybody who a famous director is, 9 out of 10 times, the only one they'll be able to think of is Steven Spielberg. But this isn't like any other movie he's ever done. I mean, the Holocaust is different. He can't do this movie the same way that he did Jaws or Jurassic Park. I mean, every time Hitler shows up, he can't have the soundtrack go, mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Spielberg might be one of the greatest directors of all time, a god among men. But even gods meet their match in the Holocaust. How can you take something like that and turn it into art, into entertainment, into a movie? Adorno once said, "It's impossible to write poetry after the Holocaust. Roses are red, violets are blue." See, I did it. It's not impossible, but is it barbaric? Is it cruel to write poetry after the Holocaust? Is it cruel to act as if the world still has enough beauty in it, something worth putting on a page or a canvas or on a screen? Or is that just a way of sugarcoating the horror of what happened, glossing over the victims in the same subhuman, anonymous way that Hitler saw them? How can we keep painting pretty pictures and kissing our kids goodnight and going to the office as if nothing happened? How could society just pick up after the Holocaust as if we still lived in the same world? As if the roses were still red and the violets still blue. As if color itself hadn't been washed out and left behind. I should write that down. I could have them say that in the movie. But that's the problem. That's the paradox. To write about the Holocaust, I have to experience it deep down in my bones. But the very process of writing keeps drawing me out of that experience. I'm constantly thinking, how could this make the audience cry? How could this scene? What song would go well with this? How can I put a plot on their graves? Victims become zoo animals viewed from the outside, and we, the infants, tapping on the glass to get them to move for us. If I really want to do this, I need to get rid of the glass. I need to forget about the movie, forget about the script, and just lose myself in the experience and try to understand. Which is impossible. Because it doesn't make any sense. People always say, why kill the Jews? You know, because they were rich, because they were communists, because the Jews killed Jesus. And that one doesn't make sense to me. I mean, people forget, but Jesus himself was a Jew. They murdered Jews in the name of a murdered Jew. You can't understand this. It doesn't make sense. You can never understand. You can't understand why they did that, and you can't understand what it's like to have that done to you, to your family, to your children. To even try is like trying to relate to a poor widow by talking about how your goldfish died. I can't relate to the experience of the Holocaust directly. You can never fully relate to that kind of pain. You're always knocking it from outside the glass. You're always seeing it indirectly as if through the lens of a camera. And yet, I mean, if we don't find a way to connect, if we can't understand them at all, if we can't relate to their pain at all, there is no empathy. There's no emotional connection to the past. And so nothing to prevent this happening again in the future. If the only ones who understand the horror of the Holocaust are the ones who die in them, we're screwed. It's impossible to understand the Holocaust. But you have to do it anyway. How? How do I give people a glimpse of Auschwitz? How do I get audiences full of popcorn to empathize with starving Jews? How? I mean, seriously, tell me, please, anybody. Hello? Do I just hint at it? Art is supposed to be subtle, right? I could write about children asking, when are we going home? And the camera zooms in on their father's face as he struggles to know how to respond. Angry men yelling in a language you don't understand. Mothers fixing their hair as they get off the trains, and the audience knows that it's pointless. There is no beauty at this stuff. Sad, but tasteful, subtle, artistic. But wasn't the Holocaust itself the end of subtlety? You can't do the Holocaust light. There is no death camps from a comfortable distance. There is no subtle final solution. There is no Auschwitz PG-13. All there are stories upon stories, images upon images. I can't even sleep anymore. Rooms full of shoes. Leave your bags, you don't need them. Dangling shirts too big for starving bodies. Ribs jutting out like staircases. In the background, the violin begins to play as you're forced to take a shower from which you can never be clean. Stripped naked, thrown into a dark room, lungs filling with gas. The camera zooms in on the face of a little boy. Confused, curious, not understanding, embarrassed to be without clothes. gasping, scratching walls, convulsing on the floor like maggots, and then silence. It is finished. The camera zooms out again, revealing a mound of bodies, and scratched onto the back wall the words, my God, why have you forsaken me?" They found that carved into the camp wall at Mauthausen. It's from the Jewish Old Testament. It wasn't just humans who died in those camps. The gas carried up into the clouds, and gods fell from the sky. There's another story in the Old Testament of suffering. What's the guy's name? Job. P.S. How insulting is it that we call it the Old Testament? Jews must hate that. Anyways, Job was like this good guy, this perfect do-gooder dude. And things started to go bad, I think. I think he may even, at the end, he might even have lost his family. Yep. Job's children were in a building that collapsed, and they all died. Job fell to the ground and sat there in stunned silence for 7 days. Job's friends came and sat with him in his silence. I always liked that part. Job's friends come and they sit with him in silence. They just sit with him so he's not alone in hell. I mean, you think you have to say the right thing to comfort people, but all you got to do is just shut up and be there. Yes. Eventually, Job got up and cried out, "Why? How could this happen? Where were you, God?" I think God actually responded at the end. This was the famous part you've probably heard before. Yeah, God responds, "Where was I? Where were you, Job, when I created the heavens and the earth? Where were you when I created the clouds and brought forth the oceans from my womb? Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place? Have you ever journeyed to the springs of the sea or walked in the recesses of the deep?" It's like Shakespeare. Tell me, surely you must know, you're such a clever human. You're questioning me, but you don't even understand the words you're using, let alone the words or the world you're using them about. You're like an ant trying to understand an elephant. Where was I? Where were you, Job? Where were you when I created the heavens and the earth? The end. God never answers. He just turns the question back on Job. It's like a teacher asking a student, "What did you think about the assignment last night?" And the kid's like, "What did you think about the assignment last night?" And that's why religion is slowly dying today. Because when we wrung our hands and cried out, "Where are you, God?" we got the biggest non-answer of all time. I mean, contrary to popular belief, God is not the correct answer to every Sunday school question. The Holocaust is. Does God watch over us? No. The Holocaust. Does God love us? No. The Holocaust. Are prayers effective? Do they work? I forgot the answer to this one. What is it? Oh yeah. No. The Holocaust. Where was God? Huh? Where were you in the fields of Treblinka? Where were you when the gas ran for the creepy pipes of Auschwitz? Where were you? Were you on the toilet? Were you on a vacation? Were you busy? Where were you? Where were we? Millions of people just watched as they took the Jews away. Those concentration camps, they needed thousands of people to run. They needed doctors, fence builders, plumbers, cafeteria ladies, accountants. And everyone just let it happen. There was one guy, he owned a field right next to a concentration camp. And he heard the cries in the morning. And he smelt the rotting flesh throughout the day. And when the war was over, they asked him, "Why didn't you do anything?" And he said, "You get used to it after a while." There was a Jewish philosopher, Simone Weil. She said that God's absence is his presence. That God is not down here on earth controlling everything because God has sacrificed his power and control and given it to us. We are the ones telling the story of this world. God could control every event. He could force everyone to do everything perfectly. He could force me to go eat a healthy breakfast and give my chains to a homeless guy. God could force us to be good to each other. He could prevent every stubbed toe, every divorce, every broken heart, every war, every evil. Then we wouldn't be human, though. We would be puppets, obeying a dictator. We wouldn't have free will. We would just be robots, following our programming. Our actions would be meaningless because they wouldn't be our own. God's absence is his presence. His present to us, his gift to us of freedom. But wherever there's the freedom to choose, there must always be more than one option to choose between. Wherever there's the freedom to love, there must be the freedom to hate. Wherever there is freedom, there must be the possibility of a Holocaust. Wherever there is the freedom to stand up and have courage and do something, there must be the freedom to stand by and do nothing like a coward. I mean, every day 20,000 people die of starvation. In 1 year, that's more than the Holocaust. Every year is a new Holocaust. I don't do anything. I don't give a crap. I don't do anything. I mean, we all know it. Every day someone dies downtown. Every week there's some crazy thing going on in Africa. Every day refugees are dying in Syria because we don't want to take them in. You get used to it after a while. Where was God is perhaps the most hypocritical question of our time. There was a Holocaust survivor named Elie Wiesel. And he once said, after the Holocaust, I didn't lose faith in God. I lost faith in humanity. Perhaps God was right to turn the question back on Job. I don't know. Maybe that's just another lame excuse for a God who isn't there. I mean, even if free will is an intellectual answer, it's not an emotional answer. Job didn't need a philosophy lesson. What he needed was someone to sit in silence with him, to suffer along with him, to cry with him, to enter into his pain, and just sit next to him in it. And you think you have to say the right thing to comfort people, but all you have to do is shut up and be there. Just crawl into the crap and just sit in it with them. And that's your problem, God. Gods don't bleed. Gods can't sit with us in our suffering because gods don't suffer. Humans suffer, but gods aren't human, and so they don't suffer. In most religions, God is this big, strong, tough dude in the clouds with lightning bolts and power and a trident, far off and away from our suffering. He's all-powerful, all-knowing, all-holy. He can't be hurt. He can't be injured. He can't cry. He sounds more like a Nazi Superman than a friend we can open up to. We can't relate to you. You're unhuman, unfeeling. You are always on the other side of the glass. And that's the real problem. It's not the intellectual problem of how God could let this suffer. It's the emotional problem. That feeling that when we suffer, we're alone in it. We've been abandoned. You're not down here sitting in it with us. In fact, do you know where the word Holocaust comes from? You should know, you invented it. Yeah, it's from the Bible, the story of Abraham sacrificing his son. The literal translation is, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son as a Holocaust. It's the same bloody word. You're off in the clouds laughing while Abraham's son goes through a Holocaust. This is not an image of God we can relate to. What does this God possibly have to say to the suffering of the 20th century? Do you know what they did to them in those camps? Dr. Oberhauser used to stick nails into the patients as science experiments to see how the metal would react in their flesh. The ones that refused were either taken out and shot or whipped. Jack Eisner was whipped 48 times. 48 times! The only God who could make sense in this world is a God who is taken out back and shot. Where's that God? Where is a God who doesn't just watch from heaven while Eisner gets whipped, but comes down and gets whipped along with him? Where's a God who doesn't just watch from afar as the Nazis do their experiments, but comes down and gets nails stuck in him as well? A God who doesn't just watch as Abraham sacrifices one and only son as a Holocaust, but instead comes down and sacrifices his own son, or better yet, yourself. Where's a God who's human enough to suffer as we suffer, who can relate, who's been there, who's broken down and cried out himself, my God, why have you forsaken me? Where is the suffering God who sits with us in our pain? You find a God like that, you let me know. As for me, I don't know about God. I tell you how Spielberg wants to end the movie? The whole movie, it's going to be in black and white, no color. He says that color represents beauty and hope, and he doesn't want the Holocaust to even be accidentally beautiful. So we're filming in black and white. And then, in the final scene, the Jews who survive get together and celebrate the Sabbath again for the first time in over 5 years. And when they light the Shabbat candles to begin worshiping their God, the flame flickers bright yellow and burns bright red. Color has re-entered the world. I don't know if Spielberg's ending is any good or not. Should it end with color, art, God, hope, meaning, beauty? Or is that world gone forever? Turned into ash and blown away with the clouds over Germany? I mean, I know Spielberg is one of the best directors of all time, a god among men, but even gods meet their match in the Holocaust. Plus, Spielberg's first mistake was trusting me with something this important. It was stupid to let me freely choose how to write this story on my own. He should be the one controlling the pen. I'm just going to screw it all up. But what do I know? Me questioning Spielberg is like an ant questioning Einstein. Where was I when he made the most highest grossing movie of all time? Where was I when he won all those Oscars? Perhaps he knows what he's doing. Perhaps I should just trust him, and one day, one sunny, bright day, a long time from now, it'll all make sense when the box office opens. Or perhaps not. Perhaps I'm just making excuses for him. Perhaps this is the biggest mistake of my career. Either way, you don't say no to Spielberg.